Thank you, Mark. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So, I know that you've got dessert coming, so I'm not going to take too long. So I'm going to put a timer on. I know I've got some angry faces. What I've got is I've got a game of two halves. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about my full-time job with Sports Trends. I'm going to introduce who I am, who Sports Trends are. That's in the first half. You see that there. Then in the second half, we're going to look at the what. So the what Sports Trends does and the what that I do within Sports Trends. So my role is director of training, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But at the heart of everything, what I'm going to go through is the why. Why I do what I do, okay? And our why within Sports Trends is to make disciples, okay? So I'm going to talk about sports initially, but the why at the very centre is to make disciples, okay? To make Christ known, to have his kingdom advanced all across the world in different places. So, firstly, before I get started, you may notice I've got a funny Geordie accent. That is because I'm from Newcastle. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Geordie. Proud. I live down here, got married to Sandy, and I've moved slowly down the country. Now I'm in the southeast, a long way from home. But I've always had sport and faith. I've always loved sports. So I've played loads of sport. My dad was a PE teacher in the same school for 30 years. And my mum and dad both really helped me instill my faith. But I connected these two together, sport and faith, when I was about 13 years old. When I was 13 years old, I kind of realised that, hang on a second, God's given me gifts, talents and abilities, and I can then use sport to worship him, as a spiritual act of worship. I could use it as a platform for evangelism. And I learned that a little bit longer, and that's what I'm doing now. But these two things was a bit of a light bulb moment, okay? Now, some of you, for that might be music, or for my wife, it might be art, something that God's given you a passion for. For me, that's sport. And sport and faith, these two things I'm going to try and share a little bit more about. Like I mentioned, when I was 13 years old, I went to a Youth for Christ football tournament. My team got to the final, okay? We lost in the final. I ended up kicking a children's play area, one of those slides things. And a guy came up to me, he didn't have any hair, and he basically told me, what you did is wrong, and I couldn't look at him. And about 20 minutes later, at the end of that tournament, the same guy stood up on the stage, and he basically told me that Jesus took the red card that I deserve. Now, you can imagine what I was like at 13. I didn't want to look at him, because I was convicted for kicking it and, being annoyed that I lost the final, okay? But it was that time, that at age of 13, through the language of sport, that I first became a Christian. So I went forward and prayed the prayer, and there was a CD, and there was a professional athlete on there who was a Christian, and explained to me, this thing about sport and faith, it was in the language that I understood. And so that was a Youth for Christ event that has changed my life forever. And now I'm involved in sports ministry, trying to do what someone did when I was 13 years old. I've got a degree in sports management, so that was my first degree. I did a second degree a little bit later in London. I met Sandy when I was there, but she wasn't at college. But I did a second degree in theology and crossing cultures. Both of those degrees were 4 long years. And there's lots of stories I can tell you about that. But I've studied at Oak Hill College in North London, and I was one of the only people who studied the mission degree. Okay, so I did 2 years part-time and then 2 years full-time. And I'm pleased I did, because that trained me a lot for the role that I'm currently doing. A lot of you have probably heard of Christians in Sport before. Little show of hands, anyone heard of Christians in Sport? Fantastic. Well, I did the Christians in Sport internship in 2014 and had a good year of training there as well. So I always say I'm a CISer. So people say, do you work for Christian Sport? No, I work for Sports Friends, but I've been trained by Christian Sport. I don't know if anyone watched the proms last night. Graham Daniels was speaking at the Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, it was brilliant last night, wasn't it? And so he was someone who's kind of mentored us quite a lot of different ways. And I've also worked for the Church of England as a sports ambassador. So I worked for the Diocese of Southwell and Nottingham for 3 years. And I basically worked at schools. We did some work with guys who came out of prison and churches up there as well. Okay? Again, a lot of stories around that. But I also coach as well. So when I was 18, I got into coaching. I snapped my ankle ligaments in my last season of playing basketball. And again, another story. But again, I went into coaching. And I've been coaching since then for the last 14 years. I actually coach 2 nights a week at Gillingham Academy. So I coach on Tuesday and Thursday at the University of Canterbury. And that's just a little way I can get a little bit more income. And also, I love being in that environment as well, being a Christian in that workplace. I enjoy doing that as well. So that's a bit about me. But what about my wife, Sandy, and my son, Caleb? I know you guys have seen us around a little bit. So I'm married to Sandy. She was actually brought up in Kenya. So she was born here, got the British passport, but she grew up in Kenya for 10 years. in a place called Nakuru, if anyone's heard of that before. So she grew up there, and then when she was 10, moved to London, so West London. So that's where her family is. So you can say she's an Indian African who's lived in London, who's married to a Geordie. So if you want to get to know her, there's a lot of stuff, and you can have to go, how on earth did that happen? And the answer is only God. Only God can do that together. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. And again, there's a lot more stories that we'd love to share as we get to know you a little bit. Her background, she's a pharmacist, so she works as a pharmacist, and we've just had Caleb 7 months ago down there. He's just about to go to sleep down there. What a blessing he has been for us. A little short testimony I would want to share before I dive into my work. 7 months ago, you'll know that Sandeep and I gave birth to Caleb. Very short story. I know some of you have heard a little bit about it. We had 48-hour labour, which turned out to be very traumatic. Ended up going into theatre, and in there was a lot of stuff that happened. But Sandeep lost half the blood in her body and needed an emergency blood transfusion to save her life. So it was a crazy time, but we thank God. And I stand up here testifying that God has brought us through that time. I have not had a chance to thank you publicly, individually. Those people that took meals to our house in that week when we needed you the most, you've no idea how much that helped us in that time. We needed our iron levels up. You guys brought around lasagna. What was the other thing we had? Trifle. We had trifles, and that was brilliant. But that moment in our darkest hour, for you guys to not really know us and to come alongside us, I can't thank you enough. My journey, I can share a little bit, was, I was affected by it a lot, seeing my wife and die and go through trauma and everything like that. And we're still kind of walking through that process. But having Malcolm there walk through it with us, someone who loves sport, basketball fan, I love basketball. Having that God's provision, we moved from Emmanuel Canterbury Church to come here, and to have that at that time when we needed it, I can't thank you guys enough for it. And I thank God that now 7 months on, a much better place. Like I spoke to Sandeep yesterday, probably at 60% recovery, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all that kind of stuff. So there's still recovery going to be going on, and we're getting different help and stuff. But I want to thank you guys, and most importantly, I want to thank God as well. And I can share a lot more about that, but I want to focus on all the things that he's done and what he's doing as well. So, video to start with. This is Sports Friends. Who is Sports Friends? Let's watch this video, and it will tell you a little bit more. Hopefully there's sound on it as well at the back.
Sports Friends is a ministry of the International Mission Organisation, SIM. Convinced that no one should live and die without hearing God's good news, we believe that He has called us to make disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ in communities where He is least known, using the powerful platform of sport. Compelled by God's great love for us and empowered by His Holy Spirit in us, we cross barriers using sport to proclaim the crucified and risen Christ, expressing His love and compassion among those who live and die without Him. We train leaders to be coaches who will share their lives and the gospel with the young people on their teams. Through sport, they make disciples who will trust and obey Jesus, and who can be helped to mature in their faith as they become part of Christ-centred local churches. We work together with local churches, national denominations and church planters to fulfil God's mission across cultures, locally and globally. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age.
Fantastic. So that's a little video there, a bit of an overview of who is Sports Friends, okay? So we're a training and equipping ministry, okay? And everything we do is through the local church. We train churches and church planters to make disciples, okay? So imagine in this church, let's just take this for example, Grace Fellowship. We would train, as an example, a male, let's say football coach, and a female soccer coach, okay? A female netball coach, let's say for example. Okay? So we would then train these coaches. The leadership would send them to be trained, and we do a 1 week intense training, and then they get ongoing training. So they're essentially a sports youth minister. Okay? So you may have been in churches before where you've had a youth worker. We train a sports youth worker. Now what they do is, see the area outside there, they would set up a CCSM, we call it, a church-centred sports ministry. Okay? And they would set it up outside the church, but it's part of the church, and it's part of their outreach. So imagine on a Tuesday and a Thursday, young people could come from all over, but they know it's part of the church, and they know these people who are trained, the sports ministers, are part of this church and community. Okay? So all the churches then mobilise, so the leadership is obviously in charge of those coaches, but of course then you get people in the church mobilised, so there's people that help out with the refreshments, with transport, with all this kind of stuff. So it's not just the coaches, it's the church that uses the vehicle of sport. Okay? In this country, we're very blessed to have things like the FA, the Football Association. So if you play football locally, you'll play through grassroots teams. In a lot of places that we work in, there's not that official place where people can play sport. The most organised thing a lot of the time is the church, the local church. So that's one of many reasons why we do everything through the local church. Let me explain a little bit more. So our vision is to see a global movement, like I say, of churches to use sport to make disciples. We're not just throwing out a ball and just playing sport, okay? I actually don't play that much sport. We are training and equipping, okay? Everyone thinks we're just doing sport, but there's way more to it, okay? I'm going to show this little video, which gives a testimony. If we can have the volume a tiny bit louder if possible.
Bless your name, oh God, each day that I awake. From dawn to setting sun, your greatness I'll proclaim. Your glory far exceeds all human thought. So with each breath I'll bless your name, oh God. Your name will be my children yet to come, as generations sing of wonders you have done. Your strong and mighty deeds are always near. Oh God, most high, your name will be revealed. How great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. How great is the Lord our God. How great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. Your gracious hand provides for all who live and breathe. Your mercy runs to find the helpless and the weak. When we call out to you, you hear our cries, and all our needs your gracious hand provides. How great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. How great is the Lord our God. How great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. And greatly to be praised.
Our strategy then, so we equip churches, like I said, church planners, that's what we do. We do it 5 ways, okay? So there's 5 things. So we share a vision, so we work with different denominations. So let me just pick one of the countries, Malawi, okay? So we work in 90 different countries, and I've been over to Malawi the most, but we share a vision with the local church leadership. So this church, part of the, if say it was part of a denomination, we go to the top leaders and get a partnership with the church, the denomination. They would then send different leaders from different churches, and we train those leaders. We have 3 levels of training. Level 1, basic training. Level 2, deeper training. And level 3, wider training. And we equip coaches, we develop leaders, and we run camps. Okay, so if you see on social media stuff, you may see vision sharing, you may see training, you may see equipping coaches. But everything we do is about developing leaders in the next generation and running camps as well. This is our organisation. Before I show you a little bit of what we do, this is me down here. But this is how we work. We have a global leader who's called Bob, and he is in charge of the organisation. But we're a ministry of SIM. Has anyone heard of SIM before? It's called Serving in Mission. Few people. Okay, so we're a ministry that's part of SIM. SIM is a really, really old mission organisation, and we're 23 years old. This is the leadership team here. So on here, as you can see, my role is Director of Training. We've got Mobiliser, you've got Finance, you've got Comms, and then you've got Regional Coordinators. You can see all these regions that we're in. We started here in Ethiopia in 2002. And since then, we've expanded into all these different regions you can see on here. So we have Southeast Asia, we've got South and East Africa, we've got the Americas, North and South, and we've got West Africa as well. So these are our regions on here. Started here in East Africa, expanded into West Africa, over here Nigeria, you can see on here Ghana, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and then we moved into, after that, with Southeast Asia, Thailand, and then there's a lot of countries that we're in now which we can't even name for safety reasons. And then we expanded into the Americas, so South America and Peru, and then with refugees, we're now working with the US, Canada, and in the UK, in Manchester, and in the northwest, in a really rough area there where missionaries have come back. And as you can see there, there's 19 different countries that we work in. So this work is all what God has been doing. Like I said, 23 years old, and there's a long story about it, which I can tell you where to find out about it. But I came into this 10 years ago. There was a missionary part of my home church in Newcastle who was the comms manager in Malawi. He said to me, Ben, after you finish your degree, and you need to come. You need to come and see this ministry. Everything you do, you love sport, you've done a degree in sports management, and you literally, this is perfect for you. And I didn't really believe him. Anyway, got on a plane after my last exam, and I fell in love with this ministry. And since then, I've been with them for 10 years this year. And amazingly, incredibly, there's been over 12,000 coaches, which are all part of local churches, that are every week working with, in the CCSM. It's now over 280,000 young people around the world, which is insane to think about the reach that kind of this is having. But I want to show you a little video. My role with training is about resources, it's about training, and it's about mentoring. Okay, so I work very closely with these regional coordinators, and I work with the country leaders in all these places. So basically, it's passed on from here to here to here to here and here. The ministry happens here. This is the ministry. The heart of the ministry is coaching the kid. Okay, but has anyone heard of 2 Timothy 2:2? Training reliable people who will be entrusted to equip and train others. Okay, so this is literally what we're trying to do all the way down. And recently, we've just launched a virtual training, and hopefully this video will work. There are training values, so we train them to live to worship Christ, lead to serve the church, minister to make disciples, and coach to develop skills. So live, lead, minister, coach. If you see me going about that is our heartbeat of what we do. It's all about our own walk with the Lord. We're part of a local church. We minister to make disciples, and then we coach to develop skills. A lot of people think it's just about this, but we want to make sure all our coaches do those things. We've just launched an online training platform now. So for 22 years, we've done in-person training through really thick manuals in person. Okay? We've now launched this online virtual e-learning platform where coaches can now go through it in their own time.
Sports Friends has had experience training coaches since 2002. Sports Friends has been training coaches in over 18 countries and 5 continents. Sports Friends has had the privilege to train over 12,000 coaches, and now we're offering an online virtual training platform for many people to experience the coaching. Sports Friends has worked with over 10,000 churches around the world. Now there's a game-changing new platform called Pathright, which is a virtual learning platform. Coaches can go through each and every single unit at their own pace, and they can click through really easy to access our training. Coaches can go in their own time and access our adult learning through videos and various other learning techniques. Coaches can easily navigate through by clicking through, reading, submitting, and virtually learning together. Sports Friends has got 4 main training values: to live to worship Christ, lead to serve the church, minister to make disciples, and coach to develop skills. There's over 3 levels of training for coaches to do. Our first level is basic training, and then our second level is deeper training, and then our third level is wider training. In each and every single unit, there's an estimated time for how long it roughly will take coaches to work through. They can click through and make sure they type in things in the box to click through, and then make sure everything is submitted properly so they can progress to the next section. It's not just only visual learning, but also coaches have an opportunity to download PDFs and manuals where they can improve their coaching skills. PDFs can go directly to their device, and it works on laptops, iPads and phones. And it's not just PDFs, there's also animations as well, which bring the manuals to life. These animations are for coaches to follow and make it much easier for them to see practices come to life. Coaches can join cohorts, and mentors can see how they're doing in their learning progress. It's not just level 1 basic training, but there's more animations, more learning in level 2 deeper training for coaches to continue to develop and to take their ministry deeper. Level 1 is a focus on the coach getting started, where level 2 takes a deeper dive into the player. It's very easy to access this training. You just go to a browser. Now, many coaches around the world can access our virtual training from wherever you are in the world. Please do get in touch with any questions.
Okay, so they can use it on any browser. They can go on here, and they can now access our resources on here. So every day I'm getting messages on here from coaches in loads of different places in the world who are going through our training, they're accessing our resources, accessing our animations, and they're going to make disciples in places all around the world. There's loads of different ways you can get involved, and I want to share a little bit about this. First thing, we are part of an SIM, which is their motto is by prayer. By prayer. The guys who founded it, this guy here and this guy, this guy was an investment banker, and he felt God call him and his family to move to Ethiopia. And so these guys both moved there, and now, fast forward now, like I said, there's over 12,000 coaches around the world, and these guys are now retired now, and they had a vision, but it was all through prayer. And they say that this is all this that's happened is because of prayer. That people have prayed faithfully. Last week I was in America, because the head office is in Charlotte, and we had loads of different events, and I met so many people who've been praying for this ministry. And you know, when you go to see these people that have got grey hair and they've been praying for this ministry, you can kind of see how God's done what He's done when you see the amount of people that have been praying faithfully. Churches have been praying faithfully for this ministry, and you see that is why God has done what He's done. You can follow, so on there, you can see on social media, you've got the X, you've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got YouTube on there, and there's loads of things you can follow on there. I'd love you guys to follow it as well. Also, financially supporting us. I mentioned about Sandy. Sandy's resigned from her job before, so now we're in a position now her last pay is finished, and now she's going to go back in locum now. Now, as a new dad, you can imagine what that's like. I've now got to look at trying to raise enough support to cover all of our expenses on there as well. Now, what I've asked people to do, I've had some training on this from a guy, and he said to ask 100 people if God's put it on their heart. So this is not something, it's called the God Ask, he says. Ask God to see if you want to give towards it. I'm asking 100 people to see if they'll prayerfully consider. So far, 10 people have given, which is amazing. And so for us to have that stability and for me to continue to do this job, I work remotely from home. If I can do that and then keep going on different trips, I have got a training budget, which is part of my role. So last week they paid us to go over, and I'll go to places like Ethiopia and Vietnam next. And that's part of my training budget. But for me to live and pay for things, that is something that we're asking people to pray about as well. Podcast, already won. This is a brand new podcast that myself and the regional coordinator for Southeast Asia and West Africa are doing, and it's called Already Won. So it's all about sports ministry. You can see these are some of the guests that we've got on there. We've got a basketball player. I know some of you guys are basketball fans. We've actually got this Tuesday, which I'm so excited about. Michael Jordan's chaplain is on there. He's a supporter of the ministry, a guy called Colin Pinkney. He's been the Charlotte Hornets chaplain for 30 years. And he knows Michael Jordan personally. And I had stories and chatted with him, and you know when you're in the presence of an amazing, great person, when you just leave that and you think, wow. He set up this ministry called Harvest Centre, which looks at tackling food and drug problems, and he's mentored over 6,000 men. Over 6,000 men, this guy. And when you sit there and listen to him, the guy has just got so much wisdom. So he's on Tuesday, and he finishes our season out, and he's definitely worth listening. But all these people here, you've got a softball coach, you've got a golf guy who has the original Sam Ryder Cup, which was 25 years before the original cup. Loads of people on here talking about sports ministry and their lane, what they're in. And of course, we link it to what we do with Sports Friends as well. So if you've got half an hour, or I think Collins is about 45 minutes, you can give that a watch as well. And lastly, I've put this on the men's group, the band brothers. There's a local Christian sport network that I run, and it's the East Kent Christian Sport Network. It's for anyone who wants to be involved within sports ministry. So we've got churches in Canterbury, and we've got churches across in Faversham, obviously now in Grace, we've got them down in Herne Bay, different places in East Kent, and we want to share the gospel through sport as well. And one of the things we've got is this tournament here. We ran it for the first time last year in Aylshire, and we had 6 teams, and we had a guy from Wales share the gospel, which was great, and gave out some different books that we gave out. And we've got another one on the 15th of June, and I know a few people have said that up for signing up. Emmanuel Church are looking for some players as well, so I'm wondering if we maybe merge Grace, or if you've got friends that want to join. I think we're on about 5 or 6, I think, through Grace. So if you want to join that, take down the churches in East Kent, you'd be more than welcome to join on that. Or if you want to come and watch, you'd be more than welcome to come and watch that as well. There was some good football last year as well. So I hope, just from this, like I said, there's these different ways you can get involved. Like I said, I want to be involved locally as well as globally as well. And all the churches, I've got 5 churches that financially support us and about 25 individuals. And all of these people would know that the heart is to share the gospel and to make disciples. That is our heart of what we're trying to do locally, and then of course globally as well. They're all on socials a little bit. Like I said, there's probably a reason why I didn't show the videos, because I've already went on 20 minutes already. So if I played those, it would have went on for 30 minutes and wouldn't have had any dessert. Thank you so much for the time. I'd love to share more about it, but guys, go and enjoy some dessert. Is that right? Yeah.
Good. I know we're all waiting for pudding, but let's just pray, shall we, for Ben, for Sandy.